Well, hey everyone, and welcome to the Author Incubator's monthly showcase. And man, oh man, do I have an amazing show for you today. I'm so excited for you to meet these new authors and find out what it took them to get their books done. My name is Dr. Angela Lauria. I'm the CEO and the founder of the Author Incubator, and I'm joined today with my co-host, Ramses Rodriguez. He is one of our incubated author alumni, the author success coach here, our program director, and my partner in magic making. Together, we have nurtured these authors through the last few months. I know they couldn't have done it without you, Ramses. So thank you so much for what you've done here. A little bit of extra magic making.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm so excited. And like you said, we have an amazing lineup for you today. So I'm going to let Angela get started because I just can't wait till you guys hear the magic they're bringing to the pages and to you today.
To
So,
the page and to the stage. We've got 17 authors. They met with Ramses every week. They worked with our training program. You'll hear a little bit more about. They had editors assigned to them, a managing editor, and a whole team of support. They had project management, designers. They were truly in the incubator bubble. And as their eggs got warmed up, they are now today ready to hatch and be seen. We've got 17 new books with life-changing messages. And I will tell you, one of these books just a few minutes ago, I had to text a very good friend and tell her, oh my God, the book today is so perfect for you. You're going to have the same exact feeling. As you meet these authors and you hear their messages, people are going to come to mind. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's a parent or a sibling or a child. As you are inspired, as you see a face or a name light up in your brain, your job is to send the link to this book to your friend. Now, there may be a book in here that you're so excited about, you should share to your whole Instagram community or your whole Facebook group or your whole email list. If you've got one, that's fantastic. But every single time today someone comes into your mind, I want you to promise me you will take this link and share it with them, their Amazon link to get their books today. You know, I think books have always been important, but we've seen such a dramatic growth in the sales of books in the last 6 months. People are reading more. They are looking for more thought out and thought through solutions. People are home more and they're focused really on solving some key problems. We're going to talk about a lot of those problems today. We're going to talk about relationships. God knows there's been a lot of relationship issues during the pandemic. We're going to talk about health and wellness, which is so important to all of us these days. We are going to talk about racial justice. We've got a couple of books that we've all been dealing with, really trying to dismantle white supremacy, and we're taking strides with some of these books. We are going to talk about hope, healing, and transformation, whether it's in your relationship, your business, your body, or the world. These books are more important now than ever. And getting these books done, I've spent so much time with the authors just talking about getting these books done. There's always something else to do than write a book. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, what will it take for me to get my book done? Well, what it's going to take is saying no to a lot of things and making your book a priority. These authors have only been with us for a few months, really since I think May. Most of these authors came in pretty early in the pandemic. Now they are out there publishing their books. Right now, their ebooks are available, and we're in a tiny window of time before their print books are available. So by the time you watch this, their print books may be out as well. This is our little pre-launch celebration because we're so excited to share these messages. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, even when I was first signing up these authors, we were thinking, wow, things are finally calming down. They'll be nice and quiet. Remember, we talked about the great pause? Funny. I think being able to focus through what's happening in America, no matter where you are in the world, being able to focus through some of the climate change issues, some of the threats to democracy, just some of the insanity that is happening on the planet right now has increased the number of people that want to write a book and decreased the number of people who could get it done. So you're going to find out from these authors. I will ask each and every one of them for you. What did it take to get it done? What worked? What didn't? And I want you to walk away from this program with a really clear understanding of what it's going to take for you to get your book done. At the end of this program, I'll talk to you about how we can help you get a book out in the world and make a difference with your message. But for now, I am excited to show off our newest authors. I'm going to interview a few. I'll pass the microphone over to Ramses so you don't get sick of my droning voice. But I'm really excited to be able to share these stories and these authors. Our first author is the author of a book called You Can Have Both: The Guilt-Proof Guide to Managing Your Relationship Like You Do Your Business. This book is by Chenier Hallrell Carter, and she really focuses on how to lose the guilt around operating a business while being in a relationship. Ramses sat down with her to get a little more on this book, and we're going to share that interview with you right now.
Well, hello, and I have an amazing author to introduce to you today here with the Author Incubator. We are interviewing the author of You Can Have Both: The Guilt-Proof Guide to Managing Your Relationships Like You Do Your Business. The author of You Can Have Both, Chenier Carter. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is such an exciting experience.
Oh my God. Well, I'm so glad you're here with us talking about your new book. First of all, lovely background. You look amazing. And second, we're going to talk about You Can Have Both. And the first thing I want to do is, the title is so intriguing: managing your relationships like you do your business. This is kind of already a little bit insightful as to what you wrote about. So tell us, what is your book about?
Listen, I realize that those of us who are entrepreneurs or powerhouse professionals, we have ambition, we have drive, and we know all of the things to make our business grow or to climb that corporate ladder. But when it comes down to relationships, we don't want to give up our dream just to have our dream man or our dream family. And so what I wanted you to know, that by reading this book, you can actually have both. And I was very careful not to say that you can have it all, but you can you can definitely have both. And so before we met our ideal man or our husbands, we had dream, vision, passion. There was a purpose that we felt like that we had inside of us. And so whatever that is, we don't want to give that up just because we also have the desire to have a family, to have the husband of our dreams. But let's face it, if we're really honest with ourselves, in order to do both of those things really well, we find ourselves sacrificing one or the other, or feeling extremely guilty when oftentimes our relationship doesn't get the lion's share of our time, our energy, our talent, and our treasure. I always say that we're oftentimes married to our business or married to our job, and our husbands don't even know it. We've been cheating on them the whole time with this business. But I believe that how you do anything is how you do everything. So these skill sets that we have as entrepreneurs, that we have as powerhouse professionals, we can use those transferable skills in our actual relationship. And I'm here to tell you that you can actually have them both.
Why is this a book you decided to write? You know, why were you so passionate in bringing this story or this process, say, or these ideas out to a woman who is a powerhouse, but also really secretly wants to have an intimacy like no other?
Listen, I say a lot in this book about one, learn from the mistakes of others, and I've made a ton. I am currently a divorcee, and I'm very frank about that in the sense of my ex-husband and I, we had multiple business. We were serial entrepreneurs, and that's where our time and energy went to, claiming that we're doing this for the family, claiming that we're doing this for some future self. Don't you want to someday in the future, own your own private island, drive the car, have a personal jet? And the future never came because we did not have a plan for how to get there in our relationship. We had many a plan of how to, this year we're going to make this amount of money, or this year we're going to get X amount of clients, and this year we're going to impact this amount of lives. But the lives that we were not counting on was the lives in our own relationship. And so, one, I am here to write this book as one, a cautionary tale. But since the divorce, I have not given up my entrepreneurial efforts at all. And so I'm able to talk to you about how when you're in a relationship, you got a special fella who was able to realize that being an entrepreneur, there are no real hours. There are no, at 5 p.m., I'm going to put everything away and everything's going to be great. No, because you have a client in a different time zone than you do. You are now planning for the next day. You are still thinking in your brain, even if you're like sitting right next to him watching a movie, did I send out the invoice? Did I do the next post? Is it scheduled out? You are not always present. And so sometimes you have someone who's trying to be by your side and you're someplace else. And so it was super important for me to actually outline what my goals are. And as much as I want to make a difference in the world, I want to make sure that my own world, which will be me and my mate, that I made a difference there. And that's why I wrote this book.
I love it. I love it. And you give a wink and a nudge, and I'm going to leave. If this sounds like you at all, listen, if Chenier was just talking to you, you know who you are. You know who you are. She gave a wink and a nudge to, hey, we make a quarterly plan or annual plan for our business. What about the plan for the relationship? So if that sounds like you definitely should check out her book. And speaking of plans, Chenier, I want to talk about your process in actually writing this thing, because a lot goes into it. As you were saying, you're bringing your personal goods, your story, your emotion, you're pouring everything into it. What might have come up in the process? How did you get through it? And how did the team help here at the Author Incubator?
Yes. To be 100% transparent, I mean, I'm practically clear on this, is the book that I thought I was going to write is not the book that you're going to receive in your hands. Through this process, not only will you grow and walk away with a plan for your relationship, but I grew. I realized that this is just a chapter in the story, but I also have complete control over what I want that future story to be. And so through this process, there were doubts, of course, of like, what makes you the expert on this particular subject matter? Do you really feel like you have it all figured out at this point? There were just many times where I thought I had a clear line of thought and it went off into the ether. What I felt was most important is that through the journey of putting my thoughts on paper, I was able to reconnect with my intention and my purpose. And that is that I believe that everyone deserves to be loved, valued, and appreciated. And because that is something that I do oftentimes in my business, I didn't want to give up because I know how important this is for other women, just like myself, who have made decisions and choices for their lives. They have delayed their dreams. They have made sacrifices that sometimes no one even asked them to make in order to get to where they are. But there's so much more life out there. There's so much more living to be done. And I didn't want to be stuck in a story that I was telling myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was really ready to walk my talk. I would tell everyone of how important it is to influence your own particular world, your own sphere of influence, not just the people who you're impacting at large. And so during this process of writing my absolute first book, my firstborn book baby, it changed me, much like giving birth to my firstborn child.
Sure.
It became not about me anymore. The way that I started living my life and how I started feeling about myself, the decisions and choices that I was making was all about being happy and excited to being introduced to the next version of myself. And I now know that the next version of myself is an author.
Yay, I love that. And I'm so glad you showed up beautifully during this whole entire thing. I remember from the time you were conceiving of the idea to done, concept to done, you just showed up beautifully and allowed the process to carry you through. So congratulations on the finish line. Go ahead and point.
One more thing.
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
And I put this in the acknowledgments, so everybody read to the absolute end. My experience with the Author Incubator has been just a blessing. Actually, the ad has been following me around for probably a year, and I decided to stop running. And it was at that particular moment that I surrendered, that I realized that I needed help to do something that I already knew I was created to do. And through the process, there was never a time, even when I wasn't forgiving of myself or I wanted to give up on myself, that the team didn't already know where I was, but also where I was going to be. The intentionality in the program is like no other. I remember getting my certificate for my manuscript completion, and the reason why it moved me is that they held space for the completion of that manuscript when I didn't even know I was going to finish this manuscript. So the process has been one of just support, intention, and I'm going to go ahead and push the button and say it was loving throughout the entire process. And for that, I'm forever grateful. I'm just forever grateful.
Oh my God. Well, the feeling is mutual, Chenier. You did beautifully. Go ahead and point to everyone your cover because you're an author. She is the author of You Can Have Both, the Guilt-Proof Guide to Managing Your Relationships Like You Do Your Business. Congratulations, Chenier.
Thank you so much. Thank you and the team. I couldn't have done it without you.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, welcome back. And I am excited to talk to you about our next author. She is the author of Making Spirit-Led Decisions for Your Marriage. Unlock the right answer for your relationship. Please welcome Ginny Ellsworth. Hello, Ginny.
Hi, Angela. I'm so excited to talk to you.
It's so great to talk about this book. I think so many people are asking right now, should I stay or should I go? What does this mean? Will someone tell me what to do? We're now so encumbered. We just moved. We have all these debts. We lost our job. And I would just who's that guy? Mike Dooley. He does the letters from the universe. God, please just send me a message. This is what you're supposed to do in your relationship. So I love this title. I love this book. What's the answer? What does it mean to make spirit-led decisions for your marriage?
So in this book, just like you're saying, so many people, especially right now, are questioning things and maybe feeling stuck. And this life that they planned out for themselves is not going according to plan anymore. But there's a catch, especially those of us like myself who grew up in conservative Christian communities. we have all these outside influences telling us what we should do, how to act, what the answer is. So making spirit-led decisions for your marriage is about identifying those imposter voices and really going inside to listen and listening, identifying really what the Holy Spirit has to say. I am a firm believer that the best answers you can find are within yourself, but it took me over 30 years to actually apply that to my life.
You know, I feel like when everything's going smoothly, I figured out kind of a jam with God. I meditated every morning. If I was ever unclear with something, I would sort of feel off. Then later in the day, I would get a ping about what to do. We had a whole thing going. And God, the last 6 months, I'm like, what happened? And meditating more hasn't helped me. Walking, I think, has helped a little bit, but when things are chaotic, do you find it's harder to make spirit-led decisions? And what if you're not practiced in doing that?
It's definitely harder. So in this book, I break it down into easy steps. And I am a writer by trade, so I'm a big advocate of journaling. If you can't figure something out, get your pen out and start writing it down. So we've got a ton of journal exercises in this book to identify those things that kind of become the gray area. You know what I do is I tend to like crowdsource my big decisions. Like, okay, what are you doing? What are all my friends doing? What did they think I should do? And that always leads me down the wrong path. I think right now, especially while we're stuck in the same place together, it is hard to find that quiet space and clear out. You can't clear out the physical voice, the physical outside voices. So how can you clear out the voices, the outside voices coming into your head, you know?
Yeah.
And it takes that extra effort.
Yeah, no surprise. I'm also a journal girl. But I do like it when my pen surprises me. I'm like, oh, did I think that?
Yeah.
Like, so be ready to be surprised. If you are looking for some clarity in your relationship, if you have a friend who's been crowdsourcing with you, what should I do? Maybe suggest this book, do a little book club. I bet even if you have other questions, maybe not about your marriage, some of these tools for making spirit-led decisions will help you decide whether to go to grad school or cut your hair or sell your house or whatever the other decisions you're facing are, right?
That is my hope.
Awesome.
I had several readers who read an advanced copy who said, man, and most of them were happily married, still are happily married. And they said, this is for anybody in a relationship. But my goal was to help people who are in that should I stay or should I go place.
I love it. Let's talk about your experience writing this book. It's been about 5 months. You wrote it, you edited it, you got a gorgeous cover here people can see. What was your experience with working with the Author Incubator like?
Oh my gosh. How much time do we have? So when I interviewed with the acquisitions editor, Stacy, I told her, she said, why do you want to work with us? And I said, well, I can do that. I can publish my book myself, but why would I go through the jungle with a machete when the Author Incubator has already paved the road? And it really, so I went in with that mindset, but my expectations, just like you guys blew it up. Even the very first exercise that we did was the Creativity Temple. And this book was not the book that I set out to write. And the team had my back when I got done with that visualization and I was going, okay, God, like I wanted to tell people how to tell their stories, but you're going to make me tell my story first. I fought it. And for weeks, but the team was with me. The team helped me work through the hard things. And, it's very reflective of the outcome of the book. they made me go inside for my answers. Nobody at the author incubator told me what to do. So the experience not only was a smooth road, but it was so empowering for me as an author.
I love that. One of my big philosophies, I learned this kind of the hard way in business, is you have to have a certain amount of structure, but then you also have to have a certain amount of flexibility. Like if there's no structure, we're never going to finish our books. We'll just be floundering around forever.
Right.
But when I first started, I had like one big job when I started. It was working for an amazing New York Times bestselling author. And he had a very specific process and books and books documenting the process. So when I started my business, I just did everything I learned from David Wise. I was like, oh, I'll follow this. And my clients crumbled. Like it didn't work. It was David's process. And so it worked great for him. I watched it work. I like helped with it. But when I gave it to everyone else, it didn't work. And so it's this weird balance of there is a structure. There, God knows there are deadlines. There's a process, and you can't deviate too much from the process, but within that process, you can sort of go crazy. So it's like we just had the walls of the loony bin.
Yes, and it works perfectly. I can't speak for everyone, but I know that I work better under pressure. So having those deadlines and knowing that I was going to be held accountable to them, that was key for me. I had so many people ask me this year, what are you doing this summer during the pandemic? What are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm writing a book. Oh, that's cool. When is that going to come out? Like in a couple of years or something? I'm like, no, this year. And honestly, that wouldn't be possible without the author incubator. The structure is key.
I'm so excited. Well, Ginny Ellsworth is the purple-haired author of Making Spirit-Led Decisions for Your Marriage, Unlock the Right Answers for Your Relationship. I'm so excited to bring this book to the world. Get your copy, share it with a friend. Congratulations, Ginny.
Thank you, Angela.
Our next author is with us and has been on an incredible journey of entrepreneurship. It seems like it's about money, but y'all, I gotta tell you, entrepreneurship is so much of a spiritual quest. It's like a vision quest for yourself. And in her book, Start Thriving as a Coach, Release Your Money Blocks and Learn to Manifest Like a Master, Betty Barnett takes you on a vision quest with your business. I'm so excited to welcome her here on your launch day, Betty, to tell everyone about this book, Start Thriving as a Coach. Congratulations. Let's talk about your book.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited to have this finally be birthed and out into the universe. So thank you.
So let's talk about the book. What's it about? Who's it for? Who did you have in mind when you were writing it?
Yeah, so I wrote this book really for all those souls out there that feel like they were called to be in service of others. The coaches, energy workers, healers of all kinds that have that little calling, that know somewhere deep inside that they were meant to help others. And then they try to find this beautiful balance of doing what they were called to do and still being able to eat,
that little matter.
Right. Being able to make a living at it. And I saw so many coaches, my fellow coaches that I went to school with, friends of mine, other people, give up on this dream that they had and on this calling because they just couldn't find that balance and make money at it. So I've really made it my mission to keep all the coaches out there coaching by, overcoming their limiting beliefs around money. And
I want to talk about it. I want to talk about a little money thing. Money and coaching. Question for you. We've never talked about this, but I think it's one of the most important questions that every new coach should ask. Do you believe in coaching? I hope you do. I do. Yes. Amazing. Do you believe coaching is as effective if you don't pay for it?
Absolutely not. And
It's weird because it should be even the same person saying the same exact words. You would think, what would the difference be? I'm on
right.
Zoom, you're on Zoom. So what do you think that it like that realization for me? I could do a coaching session with Betty unpaid, and then I could do one page. She could say the same words, the paid session, transformational, the unpaid session, an interesting day with a nice lady. Like, what does that mean about money? What is money then?
For me, it is, well, money is just energy. And
Mm.
that exchange of energy, the commitment that the person is making by transferring that money to you is the transformation. That is the catalyst that opens up all of the change that they're wanting to have. When you energetically say, I'm going to give you this 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, $10,000 worth of my money so that you can help me transform, that exchange in the first place is what, like I said, the catalyst of the transformation. And when I was a new coach and just starting out, I had so many limiting beliefs around money because I wouldn't spend money on myself. I was attracting to myself all those people who don't spend money on themselves. And so with my energy and with my passion to coach, I tried coaching them for free, or I would let them into a group. And it was always those people who didn't show up or would cancel on me
Yeah,
or,
I had the same
wouldn't do
experience.
the action steps, whatever, because they weren't energetically a part of the relationship that we were trying to create.
And then, like, I don't know about you, but for me, then it like affected my self-esteem. Like, I remember my first coaching thing I did. It was I was wanted 8 people for I think weekend writing workshop, whatever it was. And one person paid, and I didn't know what to do. So I gave away the other 7 seats to sort of random people, friends, random people, whoever I gave them to. Like, they came in late, they left early, they canceled the last minute. Of course, the one person who paid wasn't even served as well because I was distracted by a bunch of yahoos. And then I left that with the story, I suck at this. I'm never going to be successful. I suck at this.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
now, if I could go back and give myself advice, it would be like, that one person who paid you, she just got a VIP day. Give her everything. Like, we could have gotten her whole book done. I could have given her my heart, my soul, but I was so worried about being embarrassed about who wasn't there that I didn't see the person who showed up.
Absolutely. And I think it's detrimental to coaches if they don't take the time to overcome their own beliefs about money. If they don't stop thinking somehow it's bad or wrong to be wealthy or to want money or to want to acquire that, if they can't get out of their own mind, then they're not going to be able to serve the people that they're meant to serve. And that's absolutely where I was. And then when I learned about the sacred money archetypes and I learned how I could tap into each archetype depending on the situation. I learned to start to wear each archetype like a jacket, and I could put on the different article of clothing when I wanted to behave differently. It took that ego out of it for me. It wasn't Betty making the decision, it was that archetype making the decision. And that's when I started to attract the clients who were willing to pay, and that my everything just started to happen effortlessly once I realized that the prison in my own mind was what was keeping my clients away.
Yep. Yep. Well, I love this. I think it's one of the most powerful messages out there and so important. I say entrepreneurship is a vision quest, and certainly one of the big gates we got to walk through is this money gate. So I love this work. I want to hear about your time with the Author Incubator. What worked? What didn't? How was your experience?
Oh, I'm just so incredibly grateful for you and your willingness to step into your fear and do it anyways. You have opened the door for so many people to exponentially help the world because you weren't afraid. And so when I came into this program, I just wanted the transformation. I knew at the end of the program I'd have a book, but that's not why I joined. I wanted to step into the fear, which for me, writing is the thing I'm most afraid of. And that's what was limiting my business the most. I wouldn't write emails. I wouldn't write posts on email. I mean, on social media, because I was so in my head about being a bad writer that I finally said, no more. I'm tired of that story dominating my business. And so I said, I'm just going to write a book, and Angela is going to help me do it. And you guys were amazing. The support and the coaching and the other authors and getting to learn from them and their struggles is a gift that I am taking with me forever. I am different because of this program, and I'm so grateful to you for that.
Wow, I love that. I know that you are different because of the program, but I know so many people's lives are going to be changed by this book. Start thriving as a coach. It's a command. There's an exclamation point. The subject line is release your money blocks and learn to manifest like a master. And the author is Betty Barnett. Congratulations on your book, Betty.
Thank you so much.
Please join me in welcoming our next guest. She is the author of Voices of Fibro, the guidebook for moms seeking to care and support for their child living with fibromyalgia, Mildred Velez. Millie, this
Hi, Angela.
book.
So happy to finally be here.
Oh my goodness. It's like we've been running a marathon together. So this was easy for you to write. You basically had nothing going on the last few months. I know you were in a cabin in Maine, just calmly writing. I think a lot of people look at the finish line and they're like, well, I don't know, she crossed the finish. It must have been easy. But before we even talk about Voices of Fibro, I just want you to share a little bit about what this journey has been like and what the process of writing your book has been.
So when I first went into this, I thought I was going to write a book where I was going to share my story. And that obviously changed. It wasn't my story. However, it did turn into my story. Maybe not my written story right now, but it's been transformative for me. My relationship with God has grown immensely. I thought I had a relationship with God. I did not. I had faith. I would pray when I needed, but I really didn't have a relationship with God. I've had to dig deep, and I found remnants of past trauma that I didn't even know I had, or that was even trauma for me. And those things have been transformative, but also have been healing for me, for my entire family. It's been like, I hear so many changes happening during this pandemic, and I can't even begin to say like all the changes that have happened in my life, personally, professionally.
I know it's like 6 months, and I feel like since we talked, you've had 3 jobs. Like, it's like so many things have shifted in your world. You're still involved in the fibromyalgia community, but share a little of your background and why writing about fibromyalgia was important to you.
So my background, I've been in the social services field for over 25 years. And in 2007, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And I thought I had finally put a name to what my body was feeling. And I thought, great, this is it. I'm going to figure this out. And it didn't take until 2014 was when I started my advocacy journey. And then I thought, okay, this is great. Now I have a community behind me and I'm got this thing figured out. And then fast forward to now to 2020 again, I wrote this book and I thought I have this thing figured out. I'm writing a book about it. I'm telling people how to manage this condition. And I found while I was writing the book that I had not figured out how to manage it yet. And that's where the whole digging deep and finding those remnants of past trauma actually helped me. And I don't want to say that I figured it out. I haven't figured it out. Just this morning, I had some anxious feeling. I did have some pain, and I had to trick my brain and say, okay, you got this. You've written a book about this, and you're telling people all these tips and tricks that you have, but you're not using them. So go use your tips, your tricks.
I always wonder if like the calling to write a book, in so many ways, it's part of all of our like spiritual journeys. There's very few people I've worked with where it wasn't. But writing a book so often brings up the exact thing we need to work on. I remember one of my authors, she was lovely. Her name was Dottie Drake, and she was writing about chronic pain. And in her book, she had written about how she had an abortion when she was, I want to say 20, and felt a lot of shame and confusion about it. And in her 40s, started to develop chronic pain. She did all the medicine, she did all the things. And then eventually she worked with a therapist, processed the trauma of having this abortion, realized she'd never grieved that child or even that whole life that would have happened. And as she did that work, her pain started to subside, and she got the idea to write this book. Well, then she goes to write the book and the pain comes back. And like, I think sometimes I'm in the crossfire, like, wait, why did I sign up to write this? And she was saying to me, like, I can't write this book. I'm obviously not qualified. All this stuff has come up again. And as we talked, it wasn't really the same stuff that came up. It was the next layer. And what was coming up for her was her son, who came along, I think, like 5 years after the abortion. Her son had never knew about it. She never told, because how does that come up? You know, like on a Sunday drive to church, you're like, oh, by the way, you know what I never mentioned? There was never like an occasion, and they had a good relationship. And she realized she couldn't go on with her book until she had that conversation with her son, which she was afraid he would reject her. She was like embarrassed, like all those things came up again. And then immediately after they had that conversation, it was so cathartic and the book flowed out of her. But I don't think when we sign up to write a book, we're like, oh, I bet this will bring up some trauma. Like just what I've been looking for. But I think it's a very normal journey. And what I am observing of you, just to share that from my experience, is when we met, you were already confident, successful, a total badass, but I've watched you shift into the next level. It's like you're being prepared on so many levels to take it from where you were, which is great. It's not like you were in a van by the river. You were doing good work, but there's obviously so much bigger stuff to come. And being the person who got through writing this book, I think is a part of you being prepared for even more. I don't know, does it feel that way to you? That's what I see.
It does, and what's more amazing about it is that, and thank you for saying that, saying all of that, that when I was at that level, I had support, I had a coach, I had my network of people, and during this process, I've really had to shut out the world and say, this is something that I need to deal with, and I need to deal with within my immediate family and my home, and it's been just us doing this and figuring out what the next level is for us. And also you mentioned that person's son. My son is now, who I speak about in the book, because he also struggled with fibromyalgia while serving in the United States Marine Corps, is now studying to be a social worker. And he helped me with a lot of this healing process. And we've had many conversations that I think have been not only healing and transformative for me, but also for him. And he's been able to use some of the skills that he's learning as someone going into mental health profession to just put them to work at home. It's been an experience that I never thought would come out of this book. I thought I was going to help other people with this book, and I hope that I will bring healing and relief to the fibromyalgia community, because it is so needed in that community. We hear so many heart-wrenching yet courageous stories, but it's brought healing to my home and to my personal life, to my professional life. It's I didn't expect all of this. So a huge shout out to you, to the entire Author Incubator team, to my editor, Madeline, for being so understanding, supportive, and during this process.
We're so excited about this book and honored to have the opportunity to work with you. Mildred Velez is the author of Voices of Fibro, the guidebook for moms seeking to care and support their child living with fibromyalgia. Here she is, living proof. Love wins. Mildred Velez, congratulations on your book.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, you've got to spend some time with a few of my favorite new authors, but that's not all. It's like a Ginsu knife commercial. We got more coming. I want you to spend a little time with Ramses. Ramses Rodriguez, our author success coach, our program director. He's really the right hand around here, and he's in the day-to-day, the ins and outs with these authors. And there are times where they come to him and they're like, I'm just probably going to be the one person that doesn't finish. We are very proud here about having 100% success rate. We've worked really hard through the pandemic to get that, and it really comes to this dude not sleeping very much. So I am excited. Also, at these books were, like so many of us, so much going on. They were in the middle of a move for Ramses. And just so you know, the dedication, when he moved, first he got his studio, his Zoom studio set up for his clients, and then he moved his stuff in. So he's like, before I do anything, let me make sure I can coach. So Wi-Fi is exactly on the bottom of our Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We start with Wi-Fi and it all goes from there. Ramses, I'm going to hand over some books to you. These are some authors you've worked closely with, and I can't wait to hear what you got to say. So I'm going to take a step back and hand you a microphone.
Thank you so much. Like Angela said, we do prioritize Wi-Fi around here. I've had a great time introducing, working with these authors you're about to hear from. You probably, if you're like me, have noticed a little bit of a thread, a little theme. And a lot of these folks are talking about these relationships. The next two books that you're going to hear from are no different. They're about a relationship. And I first want to introduce you to the author of Dynamic Equity, Lead Your Team Successfully Through Extraordinary Radical Change, by Dr. Stephen McCrae. Welcome, Dr. Stephen McCrae.
Thank you, Ramsey. I'm doing great. Really excited to be here.
Amazing. Well, listen, I have been seeing your book develop for the last, 5 months or so. And I want to know a little bit about what this is. I mean, dynamic equity, this is a pretty, I think, current, very important book that we're going to be talking about together because of our current climate here in the US. So talk to us a little bit about your book.
Absolutely, Ramses. This is a time of historical racial reckoning and change in our society and actually in the world. So many leaders are inundated with all kinds of demands. I mean, the pandemic is turned things upside down. And then, of course, we had 846 with George Floyd. And people everywhere are reimagining what life can be. But leaders have to do the work. And I wrote this book to support leaders who are going to be working for equity and anti-racism and racial change in their workplace, and they have to do it now. They got unions, they got press, they have their boards, they have their clients, and these kinds of things unfold by the minute. So it can be overwhelming for leaders. So my book is written to support them because the arena of racial change is like no other. It's extremely complex. And we've never entered the territory of racial reconciliation here in this country. And what I wanted to do was provide a guide, actually a step-by-step guide to help leaders to do this work tomorrow. So it's both setting up transformational information and understanding and working with the varied beliefs that they have in their teams and their organizations, and then moving into creating you were talking earlier about relationships, moving into creating a unified community to work for equity.
I love that. And, you know, it's interesting. At least I came from, you know, more of a corporate side. I was in the science community before I came into here. And there's a lot of tap dancing around language and political correctness. I want to get your take on this, because if we're talking about, you know, lead your team successfully through this racial change, there's going to have to be some lingo that's going to be dropped. We're going to have to talk a little more candid like. And what kind of challenges then is this leader, you know, that you want to serve, this leader that you're serving, what kind of challenges are they having just bringing some of this up to the table, especially in our climate now?
Great question, Ramsey. The fact of the matter is that people are all over the place on the issue of race. People are all over the place on the issue of equity. We all come from a variety of backgrounds and lived experiences. And so we come in with beliefs that we may have inherited just from the community we grew up in, or just because we may have a circumscribed way of living.
Sure.
So what we do here in the book, and what I do with the leaders that I coach, is we take a deep dive into this. There's no such thing as political correctness. It's all about getting into the truth of who we are as human beings, how we think. We go through the ladder of inference, so we understand, each leader has to understand what the processes are that their people are going through. And we go through those and we help them overcome maybe implicit bias. We help them overcome drawing assumptions, and start to look at the stories we tell ourselves as we move into technical competencies in the area of race and culture and equity, so that we come with skills, new racial skills, new cultural skills, new skills of community, to move forward and begin to really establish equity and an inclusive community.
I love that. And it's pretty interesting you threw out a term here. And certainly the person who you're serving is going to kind of know what implicit bias might be. But it kind of brings to my attention, or my awareness, what would then be the benefit of talking to someone who's so into this like you, who is constantly thinking about how to create this equity, putting systems in place, uncovering what needs to be uncovered. Could someone by themselves generally know if they have an implicit bias?
We can all assume that we do, but really,
right?
if we would be accurate. But most of us don't think about that because it is implicit. It is in our subconscious. So really the whole process of working in a group, and if we're leaders, going through a process ourselves to discover it or do it with a coach, man, it's amazing. And what it is, it's liberating. Because once we know we have them and we recognize that everybody has them, then we don't have to be a servant to them. We can actually learn how to manage them and move forward to really be relating to each other as equal individuals. And that's so powerful because that allows us to get the work done.
I love that. And speaking of, and kind of just piggybacking what you said, I want to tie that into your experience in writing this book in particular, right? You talk about the liberating feeling of having something or some kind of guidance. What was your experience writing this book that's kind of charged now, and how did the Author Incubator assist you in that?
Well, listen, we're in a time where this is immediate. You know, this is happening right now, and the book is written to help people who have to make this work tomorrow. I chose the Author Incubator because it set up a structure for me to get this done. You know, I worked on another piece, took me 3 years to do it. And I don't have 3 years. So I came to Author Incubator because I knew that you had a structure. I knew you had a schedule. You had great editors. Trevor was fantastic. You know, you're on the job every week. So getting scaffolding, getting that question answer going back and forth was terrific. So that really helped a lot. And, you know, you guys have you've done this. So just small added like keep writing forward and progress, not perfection. I keep those up on the board so I can keep moving the way through, and we got it done. We got it done. And of course, I got to give shout out to my wife and my family for creating that space that allowed me to put the kind of work, because this racial equity work, this is complex. And so really narrowing it down to really get to the things that we have to do that can be practical, but highly impactful. It took some time, but we got it done.
You did, and there you guys have it. Dr. Stephen McCray, he's the author of Dynamic Equity, Lead Your Team Successfully Through Extraordinary Racial Change. Congratulations, Dr. Stephen McCray. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Ramses.
Absolutely. Speaking of relationships, still on that train, we have the author of this. I love this title. It's called The Gusty Wife's Guide to Save Your Marriage: 6 Steps to Master Effective Communication with Your Husband. It is by author Kimberly Brenner. Welcome, Kimberly.
Hi, Ramses. How you doing? I love your yellow. We should be next to each other. My color and your color. Hot.
Oh my God, I love it. You know what? I love how you came onto this call. It's exactly the energy you bring to your work. It's so amazing. If you guys don't know her, you have to. Kimberly, this work, The Gusty Wife's Guide to Saving Your Marriage. I remember when we were in the trenches of developing this together, and we were like, well, it could help wives, relationships, all these kinds of areas with respect to marriage. And you said, well, my goal is to save the marriage for that woman who really, really wants to save it. So tell me, what is your book about, and how is it geared towards the woman who really wants to hold on and give it her all?
Well, that's so true. There's a lot out there about how to survive divorce, but there are women who do want to save their marriage, and they'll come to me in my office. They'll drag their husbands. The husbands really don't want to be there.
Right.
It's kind of like, they're, the wives are going to tell me I'm the one who with the problem, and I'm the one who's going to have to fix it. Mm-hmm. But what ends up happening is I listen to the way that women are communicating to their husbands. And what happens is the husband begins to share with the woman, this is how it makes me feel and why I'm not participating in this marriage with you. Mm-hmm. And the women are like, oh, I thought I was doing it right. Mm-hmm. And so they start learning how to communicate. And that's what the book is for. They're teaching effective ways to communicate to the husband so that the husband starts responding.
Interesting.
Yes.
If we're going to get a little deep here. A woman who's going through this period where she really wants to hold on, she's seeing a lot happen in her relationship. And, if we were to be honest, what kinds of things is going to prompt her to say, reach out to you? What kinds of things is she noticing in her relationship? What kinds of things is she worried about? If we really get naked here together, what kinds of things is she worried about right now?
Well, here's kind of funny, and I say this a lot. Men come to see me because they want to know how to make their wives happy.
Yeah.
They really do. I want to tell me, how can I make my wife happy? But the wives come to me and say, what can I do to fix my husband?
Oh boy. So what is she trying to fix? What kinds of specifics usually what's your number one?
He doesn't talk.
He doesn't talk. Okay.
He doesn't talk. So my whole focus is on communication and getting him to talk, because once the man starts to talk, usually the wife is like, I never knew that. I never knew that. And they begin to build this relationship with each other, which is pretty exciting to watch. And often when couples come to me because they're talking about divorce, I tell them, you don't know the person you're divorcing. Let's find out who they are first.
Sure.
And once they figure out who this person that they're married to is, guess what? They don't divorce.
Wow, that's amazing. It's really that simple then, right? What kinds of effects, we kind of simplify it, right? We're going to learn how to talk to the man. He's going to say more. What is the trickle down effect then of this coming together? What other areas of that relationship maybe get a little spicier too?
Well, I'm going to talk about a pain point for me.
Yeah.
Okay. A turning point for me was when I saw the statistics that said 70% of divorces are filed by the woman.
Oh, I didn't know.
70%
Wow.
of divorces are filed by the woman, where she says, I'm done. I don't want to work on this anymore. I don't love you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why? Because it's typically the woman who wanted to get married.
Mm-hmm.
And what the pain point besides that one was what it does to the children.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And and it's very painful for the woman if she is divorced to go home and the kids aren't there because they're visiting dad.
Right.
So I really, even though I'm saying I'm saving the marriage, it's implicit for me that I'm saving the family.
That's very powerful, right?
And we are, as women, we're relational.
Yeah.
We're family. And so I want to be able to empower women to be able to communicate in a way, both internally, how they think, their mindset. I call the mindset, do you know how to be married?
Well, that's a question. Wow.
So can I tell something personal about me?
Well, of course. She
Okay,
wants
great.
to know, by the way. She's holding up. She's like, no, tell me more, girl.
I know. So I divorced my husband after 18 years of marriage. We went for marriage counseling. We did.
Wow.
And the counselor was horrible because she let us fight and never got to helping us figure out how to work together. So anyway, I divorced my husband. We were divorced for 7 years, and I came back to him. And I tell the story that when I was married to him at the beginning, I was a girl. I was in my girl energy. I was selfish. It was about me. How come I'm not getting it? You should make me happy. What's wrong with you? And then I came back a woman who would ask my husband every month, do you feel loved by me? And it became this thing where I wanted my husband to feel loved by me, because when he did, oh my God, he would do anything for me. Shower me with everything I ever wanted.
That's
so
beautiful.
This is what I do. I help women go from girl energy to the gutsy goddess. And that's why I call myself the gutsy wife.
Oh my God, this is working. All this time we were working together, and now I'm seeing it come together. It's so amazing, and it's powerful. And I've seen the passion you put through this. Especially, when you wrote this book, and this is true for all our authors, but in particular you, when you were sharing just now, we do put so much of our own life and our body of work, of course, like yours, a lot of experience in this area. But, it can get overwhelming. And so I did want to take a second just to talk about your writing experience now, because you put so much of your body of work. I remember you're like, there's so many things I do, plus your story, which you can't help but feel really personally connected to it. How did the Author Incubator help you kind of disseminate some of this, put it all together? What was the process like for you?
So again, telling on myself, I'm not very coachable. I have run through so many coaches in my life. And what happens, and every coach will tell you this, I'm flighty and I'm the shiny object. I'm, squirrel. Okay. I think it comes from that whatever comes through my door as a practitioner, as a marriage coach, I have to deal with it. Sure. So I have all of these different pieces, which is great, but the Author Incubator and you specifically with our weekly coaching, thank you, I love you to pieces, was like, focus, just do one, just do one, just do one. And the best advice was just talk to one person.
Yes.
Yeah, just talk to one person and you're going to transform their life, because there are, that person is duplicated. There's a lot of people that have that same problem, the same issue. And it's how do you communicate to your husband so that it becomes effective and that you can turn your marriage around and make it work so you have the happily ever after. So now for me, it's 49 years and I'm very happy. And it's also my birthday today.
Oh, right. Happy birthday.
I know.
Birthday.
So I'm on a high. What can I say?
Sure.
Birthing my book, having my birthday, 49 years of marriage, making my marriage work. I'm happy. Happy girl.
So
And
good.
happy wife, happy life, right?
Right, exactly. And now you're an author. We always kind of say, kind of flippantly, but you'll never not be an author again. So congratulations. Listen, you guys have heard it. You've met her, the Gutsy Wife, and get your copy of The Gutsy Wife's Guide to Save Your Marriage, 6 Steps to Master Effective Communication with Your Husband. Congratulations, Kimberly. Thank you so much. Ramses, Dr. Angela, Natasha, love you all. Mwah. Mwah. Wow, you heard it from her. And now I'm going to hand over the mic back to Dr. Angela Lauria. You got a little bit of a thread of our relationships that we're hearing from. And now you're going to hear more of these magical authors who are changing the world with their messages. Dr. Angela.
Hey, such fun conversations. Kimberly Brenner's book, Our Gutsy Wife. I gotta tell you, woo, that was an interview full of great ideas and suggestions. And I don't even think we got to more than one of the 6 steps to master effective communication. That's a book I recommend you find your bestie, your best girlfriend, your closest girlfriend, and do a book club with this one. So make a decision right now. Who do you want to do a book club with, where you guys can challenge each other to mastering some of these steps with your partner, and come back and share. And maybe at the end you celebrate with a socially distanced outside dinner with your couple friends. But great books, great interviews. I'm excited to share with you what is next. And such an interesting transition from talking about how to save a marriage with great communication to now how to alchemize a divorce. Alchemize your divorce, turn the inflammatory toxic stress of your marriage into abundant energy for life. Kimberly Glow is here to talk about your magical message. So many of us struggling in relationships, trapped in a house, often that needs plumbing and other work. It's been tough times for relationships. What is Alchemize Your Divorce about?
Yeah, so the book was really birthed because of the COVID pandemic, believe it or not, because I was sitting at home trapped in this apartment with my man, hours and hours and hours, on end, day after day. And we were having the best time. And I said to him, my gosh, thank God I like you, because this would be hell, literally, to just spend so much time, because I've never spent ever in my life so much time with somebody. And I realized just how much gratitude and appreciation I have for this man and for my life, and just how blessed I am given the circumstances. And then it started making me think, wow, what about the women who are feeling really miserable and were already in a rocky marriage, and things weren't working well, but they can ignore it because of the busyness of their life. And now all of a sudden they're faced with this fact that they're with this person that they can't seem to, no matter what they do, work things out, and they're just miserable. And then I got online and started searching and saw that people looking for information on divorce on Google went up 30% since the pandemic started. And that data came from March onward. And then I saw another interesting statistic that there was an increase in 34% of downloads for separation legal papers online so that you can do that yourself. Which then led me looking at domestic violence, and it was the same thing. And so with that in the background of my mind, I thought, wow, I really need to write a book for women who've made this decision that they need to get out. And how are they going to do this in a way that serves them, serves their children, even serves their ex? And how are they going to do this in an empowered way, coming from a place of love, not coming from a place of anger, not coming from a place of hate, but how can they harness the energy that they're feeling and shift that, which is where the alchemy word came from. You know, how can they shift the negative energy into something positive that's going to serve them and their family moving forward, and then keep them as healthy as possible, physically and mentally? And how can they move through life, you know, the rest of their life like this? And the book, honestly, if you tore the cover off and tore the divorce off, the material in the book, honestly, is teaching everybody how to live a balanced life full of love, grace, and ease. So in reality, every human being on the planet could benefit from the teaching in the book.
I feel like it's so easy to imagine other people's divorces or crappy marriages or unhappiness. But when it's yours, there's so many complications when it's yours. It's like, yeah, but the kids are in school and they're using his mother's address, and it's always minutia, but it's like he lost his job and his job was in Tuscaloosa. So now we're living here, but the only reason we're living here is it's his brother's land. And, you know, I hear all these stories that it feels so impossible to get out, that I think many people don't get to the point where they're like, well, I bet I can alchemize this divorce. They're just more like, oh, how nice other ladies get to alchemize their divorce. I gotta wade through this shit show for the next 20 years. So what are some of the pieces of advice or surprises we might find in your book around that?
Well, let me just say that I'm very conscious of those feelings, especially when people are raw with grief, and they're raw with heartbreak, and they're raw with feeling like they're a failure. I went through two divorces in my life, and this book also, you know, was personal for me in the sense that it took me 10 years after my second to really truly heal and grow from that and dig deep and figure out what was going on with me and why was I attracting these situations into my life? What was my role? Basically, I stopped playing the blame game and the victim game and just, I guess, kind of rebirthed my entire life. And so because of that, I know how painful that was for me. I felt alone. I felt like I was fatally flawed. I felt unlovable. And truth be told, I just felt like I may die alone. Like this is my lot in life, that I am just going to die alone. And not in a joke, fun way. I mean, I was very, very devastated by this. And so with that amount of compassion and understanding, when I approached this book, I wanted to have women understand this is not all about skipping through fields of flowers and you are just going to be, you know, spreading love and light everywhere you go, even though you are tanked and don't really believe you can get out of this. So the book, I decided to make it fun and frivolous on the one side, but while still going very deep with the information on another level. And so I sort of interwove the book with my favorite movies, and they're all chick flick. They're all chick flick movies that most people are familiar with. But I interwove the book with vignettes of those movies in each chapter. And then there's teachings that I use from those movies in a fun way, just to get women to really identify in a real life way with some of these situations, get them thinking about themselves deeper. Then I put music in each chapter. So while a woman is reading the chapter, she can take a break, listen to some of this music that I put in there. Also, if she wants to watch the movie during each chapter, she can break and do it that way. But then I also put activities and journaling and different things within each chapter as well, so that the book is not just a book, but it's a workbook too, so that during each chapter, there's activities for them to work on to really go deep with themselves, think, take time. This book is not meant to be rushed through in any way. And I laid it out in a stepwise fashion so that if you do the work chapter by chapter, you should be growing, opening, and sort of releasing some of this stuck energy and changing some of your perception as you go through it. And I also warn women, you know, like if you're not ready for some of this, take a step back. And one of my favorite things in there is a activity regarding energy. And
hold on, Kimberly. I don't want you to give away the good stuff. We're coming close to the end of our time, but she's got an energy giveaway, and you can track her down, get this book, and get the energy exercise. I love that it's more than a book. It's really an experience.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And speaking of experiences, we'll just take one more minute of your time and just share anything that you learned by working with the Author Incubator, how you think your process might have been different with or without us.
Well, I joined the Author Incubator because of you, Angela, because I came across a video of yours where, I'm not kidding, I got sucked into the video, into you, in such a deep, profound way that I started crying. It was crazy. And now I'm gonna start crying talking about it. But I felt like I have this inner Angela that I don't know, I couldn't get out for some reason. And I'm someone who believes in magic. So that magic that you brought into that video just released the magic in me. And I can't say enough, like it was just crazy incredible. And after getting past that part of it, where I just felt like I need to work with you, I don't care what it takes, I'm working with you. What I liked about the structure of your program is, even though I'm not diagnosed with ADD, as a type A medical physician, I'm totally ADD for sure. And I'm all over the place, and I start projects, I don't finish them. I've got a million ideas. I've started a bunch of books that have never gone anywhere, and I finally just give up on them. And so because I was so passionate about finally getting this book out of me, I didn't know this was going to be the book though, by the way, you know, before, but I just knew I always wanted to write a book. I needed this program because the program offers structure and accountability, which is something I desperately needed, because without that, this book would not be written. And so I cannot thank you enough. And you are my soul sister, for sure.
Here's my question. Do you feel like I was the soundtrack to your life for the last 5 months? So many people tell me they can still hear, they fall asleep to the sound of my voice.
Yeah, actually, this is true. Subconsciously, yes. And I would find myself waking up at that witching hour of 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and hearing things that you said, or just really thinking about my book on a subconscious level all the time. And so I'd get up in the middle of the night sometimes to write things down because they came to me in my sleep. And so this program, once you join it, it's in your blood, and that's where it will be. So
I love that. Well, we are so excited about this book and all of the marriages that will be saved and alchemized from it. Alchemize your divorce. Turn the inflammatory, toxic stress of your marriage into abundant energy for life. And we all need all the energy we can get these days. Kimberly Glow is the author. The book can be yours right now. Share it with a friend. Thanks, Kimberly. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Our next author has the key to one of, I think, life's biggest mysteries around how you can make big progress fast. To me, the fastest progress I have ever made has been in a round pen with a horse, and not even riding a horse. I did ride a horse when I was like super little, like maybe 10. But what I have learned is that horses, I believe, are on the planet to be teachers for humans. And if there's anywhere in your life that you are stuck, something you've tried to solve for a long time, I encourage you to get this book. You may not be sitting around thinking, wow, I really want a book about horses. But if you have any problems in your life that you've tried everything to solve, it may be going to a horse teacher instead of a human teacher is the answer you've been waiting for. Freedom from Stress, the Horse's Way. How equine facilitated coaching can help you heal and thrive. As we all know, stress is the foundation of so many illnesses in our world, and learning from these creatures can help minimize not just stress, but the effects and fallouts of stress. That's why Anna Herold's new book is so important. You can get a copy on Amazon right now. Share it with a friend. Anna Herold, Freedom from Stress, The Horse's Way. Tell us about this book.
Hi, Dr. Angela, and thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to share my book with everybody. This book was created from a combination of my love for horses and knowing the potential that they have, the power they have to elicit healing within people who come in contact with them in a certain container, meaning you are with a horse in a certain way, you are present with that horse, and they are able to mirror to you things that we don't even want to probably look at within ourselves. They bring light to all those dark places within ourselves. So I found it really appropriate during this time, during this pandemic, during all of 2020, for a book to be written that honors the horse and the healing power and wisdom of horses, and also takes stress and overwhelm, all of which we are dealing with on some level, and shows us in a different light how we can actually transform that stress and overwhelm, which means if it's transformed, then the energy that can be used from the transformed stress can go to good things in your life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. What's your horse journey? Were you always a horsey girl? How did you end up in this work?
Yeah, I was always a horsey girl, except growing up, we did not have horses of our own. I lived in town. I was never someone who could just have a horse in my backyard. I did my best to be able to take lessons and ride, and I was obsessed since the time I could walk. So horses have always been in my life to some degree. Currently, I'm a massage therapist for horses as well. So there's a healing component there. So that is something that I do. They are in my life constantly. And I have my, excuse me, my own herd that I work with on this level of coaching and holding space for transformation right in my backyard, where people come and see me and work the
program. Oh my God, where is your backyard? We all need to come.
Yes, it's in upstate New York in a tiny little town called Harpersville. And I hope that it'll only grow from here. So.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's talk about the riding, not riding. Obviously, you're a horse person, so you probably also ride horses. When you work with clients with horses, do you use like equine therapy riding techniques, or how does your work work?
Sure. So although there are definitely techniques out there, therapeutic riding is a whole different category, and it does amazing, miraculous work. With my work with coaching, there are ways to do seated sessions, meaning there is a person on a horse and you can work that way. There can be transformation.
Never done that.
Huh. Yeah, that's not something I do often. It rarely happens because usually by the time the person gets to the gate or gets to the round pen, the transformation is already occurring. So I find less distraction, not worrying about being on the horse, not worrying about being nervous about whether or not the person is capable of riding. It takes away all of those elements, and it just allows the person to be themselves, to find their authentic voice in front of this horse who will give them instant feedback on what it means to actually live authentically.
That's it. You said it so perfectly there. I don't know if people get it. Sounds so weird. What am I gonna, is it like horsey day outside? Am I brushing them? Like, it's so hard to imagine. What would you do with a horse if you weren't riding it? And I think it's the way you said it, I loved it. It's like you can find your authentic voice because horses are bullshit meters.
Yes.
It's like all the ways we're conditioned. I'll say especially women, but everybody has this, especially women because I'm a woman, but like the ways we're conditioned to like be nice or get hurt or don't ask too many questions or smile, or like none of those scripts about how a nice girl should behave have been fed to the horse.
Correct.
So the horse is not like, oh, she's smiling. Oh, I see she's politely greeted me and shook my hand. Like the horse doesn't have that list of things. Horse is looking for, is this person bullshitting me?
Yes, exactly.
And you have no idea how much you're bullshitting yourself all day long about everything.
That's correct. And that has a lot to do with the voice that I tend to call the false self voice. That's a common term for it, or the smaller self, the ego. We all have it to a certain degree. How far we are buried underneath it depends on where we're at in our life. But even if you feel like you've had a perfect upbringing and barely any issues and just a little bit of stress here and there, you are buried under layers and layers of conditioning and false self voices and judgments and beliefs that are limiting to yourself, that the horses can unravel in such a quick, efficient manner. And it's like magic.
It is super like magic. I'm so excited for everyone to get this book, Freedom from Stress, The Horse's Way, How Equine Facilitated Coaching Can Help You Heal and Thrive by Anna Harold. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Well, Ramses, I know you have queued up a couple more authors for us to meet, two-time authors. Why don't you introduce us to them? And I'm going to go take a sip of water and I'll meet you back here in a few.
Absolutely. Go enjoy that sip of water while I introduce you these next two amazing authors. I want to get right into it because I'm so excited about this next book in this area of a lot of growth and expansion, as if you could probably tell that the world, and at least here in the US, is experiencing. We have a book that is called The Guide to Be a Spiritual Leader in Your Community. It is by author Kristen Panik, and I'm so excited to introduce to you Kristen here. How are you, Kristen?
Great, thank you, Ramses.
Welcome. I'm so excited to talk to you about this. It's called The Guide to Authentic Leadership, dear. Authentic Leadership, The Guide to Being a Spiritual Leader in Your Community. Tell us about your book and what inspired this.
Yes, well, at our Flowering Heart Center that we have, there's people who come and experience tremendous growth, and then they want to give back at some point, you know, or even before they walk in the door, they realize they want to give back to the community, but they think they have to be somebody specific before they can lead others, before they can lead a group, before they can show up as a leader in their community. They think they have to have their issues handled, and that's not at all what it's about. It's being who you are, that authentic self, being willing to show up in that way. And actually, as part of the leadership training, you can use the reflections of what's happening around you for your own group, for your own growth. So who are you attracting? What issues do they have? You know, it always comes back to ourselves and what we're dealing with.
I love that. And I want to unpack this a little more because we have someone in the audience probably right now. They're probably home and saying, that's great for the people who want to be leaders, right? But how does a person know they're getting that calling to be a leader? What are they experiencing? And how would they know that the thing they need is this authentic leadership book?
So that desire to help others just arises inside. And it may be a simple thing as we're seeing, you know, the effects in the world of the pandemic and people who are anxious and worried and need some support in various different ways. And so we can show up to help our neighbor, and that can be a leader. You know, we can show up and, you know, just gather a small group together and work with them. Or you might be part of another community where you want to step up there. You know, or it could be too for people who are already running communities, who are already leaders, but realizing that there is more, that they want a step-by-step process or just some tips on how to show up in a bigger way to help more people. So in either case, it's that desire that comes up inside, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's sometimes I come across women in particular who've raised their kids. They're great at managing their life. You know, they come in, they feel great, they want to share it with others, but then they're like, but I don't have this training, right? And so one of the first things I love to do is to really get people in touch with their natural gifts, what they naturally bring, but haven't really valued because it's so easy for them, right? We're in a culture that you work hard for things, you know, you improve yourself, but it's actually those things that come very naturally to us that are gifts that can show up for you in a way.
It's interesting. You mentioned a couple things, kind of in getting in touch with actual gifts you could leverage to be an effective leader. And also you mentioned women. So did you write this specifically for women who are trying to be effective leaders? And why would this even be an issue for women in particular?
I just find often women who, so it's written from the perspective of a woman who's hit that point in her life where she's been working, she's been taking care of family, so she's been kind of pushing down her dreams, her desires. What do I want? What can I be in the world? I just got to take care of my family, and I've got to help with, you know, bringing in income. But all of a sudden the kids are grown and gone. And now, you know, now it's, who am I? You know, what way can I serve now? Right? I'm used to serving. I'm used to helping with my children. I'm used to helping at work, but I want to help others. You can look out in the world and see there's a lot of pain, you know, people who are suffering right now are having issues. How can I help? So that's really
Right. So this is interesting because this is actually your second book with us, right? How does this work of really getting someone to become an authentic leader right from where they are, maybe contrast from the work you are already doing, and how are you bringing that and marrying that to help women become these authentic leaders now?
So in regards to my first book, is that what you're asking?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. So the first book is really a foundational piece. It's called My Family Needs My Spiritual Leadership Now. So often it's a younger woman with small kids, and at a certain point she realizes they're taking on my values. Like I'm their leader, whether I want to be or not. And so it's really supporting them through that stage. And a lot of that work is for anybody actually in a leadership role as well. So you'll find when you're in the current book, Authentic Leadership, it often will, I've reprinted some of the processes from the other book because they're so powerful. For healing relationships, for looking at where you're getting stuck, for uncovering beliefs that are in your way. So there's some really powerful processes in the first book that have carried into the second book and then build on those.
That's beautiful. And, you know, being a second-time author, you probably already have 2 doses of our processes, that's for sure. You've created 2 amazing, life-changing bodies of work here. For the second time around, though, how was your writing experience with the Author Incubator, basically as creating the continuance of your work, that next level for someone you want to serve?
Yeah, well, it was quite interesting because, you know, the first time through it was so unnerving, just going through the whole process and putting my work in the world, and you had a great process. But I did it, right? And the second time through, I had trust. So the first time through, I had the material, I knew what I wanted to put out there, you had a structure, I was just scared. I was just like, the second time, it's like, the second time was the opposite. Like, I trusted your program, I trusted the process, and I didn't know what I was going to write about when I started.
Interesting, yeah.
So, and that did not bother me because I knew that you create the space from which it can arise. And I knew that you would support me through that process. So it was a lot more fun in that way the second time around. Like, I knew the process was going to work. I knew I'd have my book. Like, there was no worry about that. It was, I could relax into the process. And Corey, my editor, was the editor on both books. And
Corey,
so the whole editing process was much tougher this time because the topic was unwieldy and, it was new. It wasn't something I came in thinking I was going to do. And he was just so incredibly supportive through the whole way that I just, I felt very buoyant in the process, like I'm being held up, right? So that whatever needs to come through can come through. So I'm really appreciative of everyone there at the Author's Way. The support is just really powerful.
That's amazing. Well, it's no surprise you wrote a second book on authentic leadership because you did show up beautifully. Thank you so much for being here with us. You guys hear it. This is Kristen Panik. She's the author of Authentic Leadership, the guide to be a spiritual leader in your community. Thank you so much for being here. You guys should grab a copy of this book and make sure that you look at it. If you have that voice, that calling to step up in a different way, whether it's kind of in your spiritual communities or kind of in your communities as a whole, as Kristen said. So congratulations, Kristen.
Thank you.
Next, I want to introduce to you the author of Your Body is a Superpower. This one hits home for me. Your Body is a Superpower, How to Live with Confidence, Creativity, and Joy. The author of this book is none other than Janet Farnsworth. Welcome, Janet.
Oh, it is so good to be here with you, beautiful Ramses.
Oh my God, I can hug you for miles, dear. This is your second book, everyone. This is her second book with us. I love the title of your second book here. It really speaks to something that I think is very universal, but definitely it has a very clear message for a particular lady who's going through this. So tell us a little bit about your second book here.
Oh, thank you. My second book is meant to be the companion to the first, which was specifically about how to love your body. For the 97% of us who have something about our bodies that we would change. That's almost every single one of us. And the likelihood is a majority of that number probably actively dislikes something about the body. And the first book was a deliberate, explicit attempt to say, okay, let's stop doing that. Stop hating who you are, because your body is who you are. And when you're attacking your body and when you're looking in the mirror and thinking those negative thoughts and saying all those things to yourself, you're saying that to your soul. And so how do we get past that first hurdle?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got those steps out in book one. And then I realized, uh-oh. Now we've stepped over the threshold. I've got to live my life, right? I had this great gift this last year of working with people in my program about love your body. Mm-hmm. Let's learn how to love the body. Mm-hmm. And then, okay, but I can love my body when I'm standing still all by myself in the bathroom, maybe. But what do I do when I'm eating?
Yeah.
How do I love my body when I'm having sex?
That's a big one.
I mean, right? Artfully draped sheets, lighting. What would it be like to have sex loving your body and not caring about how you look?
It's so powerful. I've seen your work and it's so fascinating to see the first body of work really inspire this new one. I mean, I kind of love following your work. And it's because of something like this. I'm going to be honest with you, Janet. I'm going to share a little bit of my story. I suffered from body dysmorphia early on in my early 20s, coming out as a gay man. And when I see the title of your second book, it completely makes sense and resonates to me how it is a continuation of your first one. Because, imagine there's a woman right now listening to us talk, and she says, you say to her, your body is your superpower. I remember when I was in the thick of my dysmorphia, how it felt like an assault. I could not believe that to save my life. So what would you say to her right now? She's listening. She's like, that's for women who kind of like, they could love their body, but I really, really can't, because you just haven't seen this lump right here, right?
Thank you. And actually, I'm going to answer sideways, because I first want to say explicitly, which is both the first and the second book, when you describe your dysmorphia as a gay man, you're describing a relationship with your body as it was and as it is. And I don't know your personal story, we've never discussed it, but if we have an experience of other, if we have an experience of looking anything like what we think we're supposed to look like, or experience our bodies the way that apparently we're not supposed to experience them, we have then created this clash with our souls. And that it's only in being able to feel who you are that opens this gateway to the expression of yourself. Yeah. And so it so moves me to hear you say that. As a gay man, I have this beautiful client who has a neurological disorder. It makes me cry. She's always in my heart when I'm writing, because she feels like her body betrays her. And like the practice of actually welcoming and recognizing that what she feels and what you feel and what I feel and what everyone here listening feels in your unique body, it's the freedom. And so I just got a little word that I'm supposed to be wrapping up. I feel like it's like the Oscar speech.
I know, right? Well, you said a lot of beautiful things and a lot of great tokens. I think if you are a woman who, or anyone really, but if you're a woman who is struggling with body image and trying to love your body and trying to find that comfort that comes from living in your own skin, I certainly have been on that path, so I get you. Check out this book. You need to basically download it right now and just consume it and talk to everything and follow Janet. The book is called Your Body is Your Superpower. And Janet, this is your second book. How was your process of writing this one as a continuation of your work?
Thank you for
that. How did the Author Incubator help you with this one?
The books would not be written if it weren't for the Author Incubator, period. End, stop, full sentence, that's it. And I do want to share quickly that in the second book, Angela sometimes talks about like one author out of hundreds actually did the cabin in the woods things. Well, the advantage of COVID is that I'm working online. And so I was like, I'm going to go to the cabin in the woods. Now it was a condo and like a motel thing on the mountain, but it was in nature with the trickling water. And you know what? The process was exactly the same, which was terrifying and exhausting and filled with the self-doubt. And the greatest gift that the Author Incubator holds, and that I think it is the gem of what Angela Lauria represents, which is you learn by doing. Yeah. You do, and you do, and then you create. You act, and then the open heart comes. And it's someone who lives with self-doubt. I only write about what I've had to learn. You have the Author Incubator to hold your hand and say, jump. We're going to hold
you. Showed up beautifully too. I have to say that it does take you, when you take a bet on yourself and really decide to take on a story and a message of this magnitude that really triggers many, many people. I think you showed up beautifully as well. So congratulations on your book. You guys hear it. This is Janet Farnsworth, the author of her second book with us, Your body is your superpower, how to live with confidence, creativity, and joy. Congratulations, Janet.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now I want to take a moment and hand the baton back to Dr. Angela Lauria, who has more authors that we'd like to introduce you, and kind of with a new little thread of authors who've written about topics when the stakes are high. Dr. Angela Lauria. And she's going to be
those were some great interviews. I really loved hearing them. And I had so many times I wanted to jump in and add my 2 cents. That was good stuff. Well, my next author is one of the most cutting edge doctors out there. She's done incredible work with tailbone pain, pain management, and in ways that are not always expected. She's joined us by her co-author, Mr. Bones, you can see, Dr. Jennifer Stebbing. Her book is Rehabbing the Last 10%, Solutions for Patients Who Have Plateaued During Physical Therapy. So a little surprised to see this book from you. I know you've got 100 books in you, but what was the inspiration for writing this book and who's it for?
So hi Angela, my book is for physical therapists. It was written for a physical therapist and I dedicated the book to him. So his name is Khan, who was super enthusiastic about learning. And he wanted to figure out why a certain patient wasn't getting better. So he called me up and he said, tell me, what's going on with me? Will you help me? And so as he was asking me all these questions about his patient, I realized that I could take that and turn it into a book. One of the things that I realized is that there's such a discordance, if that's the right word, between what we know and what we don't know. And so many times in medicine, we're only limited by what we know. And there's a whole bunch of information out there that we just don't know about. And in the physical therapy world, one of the things that they just brush over with in their education is reading X-rays or interpreting MRIs or understanding what the language is behind these interpretations. So one of the things that I wanted to do with this book was to go over some of these X-ray findings and these MRI findings, because then they could help direct the patients into the proper doctor if they weren't progressing. So we want a really good diagnosis when somebody is not progressing normally through physical therapists. There's something that's missing. And so what I'm trying to do is teach physical therapists ways that they can look at situations like that and make a difference in their patients' care.
Let's talk about how your training differs from the training a physical therapist has. Like, what's your training? Where does it intersect with what a physical therapist learns? And where do you have some knowledge maybe they don't have?
So I'm an osteopathic physician. I started off as a family doc. I practiced family medicine for 8 years, doing everything, delivering babies, assisting with surgery. I worked rurally. What I recognized was I used the physical therapist back then to help patients with pain get out of pain. Later on, I realized that I couldn't do it all. I couldn't know it all. So I went back into training and did a subspecialty or a fellowship year in sports medicine. And one of the things that we all recognize in sports medicine is we're only part of the solution. And that, as I did more training, and so my emphasis is in an area called regenerative medicine, which is treating people with things that heal their bodies. And there's lots of different ways to do this, but instead of using steroids or surgery or bracing or other things that may, they don't necessarily heal the area, I use more injection techniques to encourage someone's bodies to heal. So what I
This
recognize.
is where you're that regenerative stuff you do. That's
Yeah.
where it always seems to me like all the other doctors I know are in the present and you're living, you know, like 5 to 10 years in the future. It always
Yeah.
seems like you're the ghost of Christmas future of what medicine will be, but isn't yet, but it is in your office.
Well, yeah, most of the time there are no protocols for what I do. So if someone's in a car accident, for example, or has chronic pain and they've already been to all the specialists, and then they come into me and then, you know, I'm looking at x-rays and other things. And then I'm, you know, as an osteopath, I use my hands, you know, I put my hands on people's bodies and I can tell things that you can't tell with imaging. And that's kind of the overlap with physical therapists. They sometimes can feel things that you can't see on imaging. So I'm really comfortable being on that, you know, being on that wave, you know, where that crest of that wave where people are like, I don't know what to do. I'm really comfortable right in that gray zone of medicine.
I think that's one of the things that just makes you so unique. And there's been so many times where I felt authorities in medicine and law, like just authorities in general, they want to lean back on those established best practices or established SOPs. And I'm trying to say, I'm different, treat me differently. And I love how you see each patient as their own little mystery. You're like a Dr. House.
But I'm nicer than Dr. House.
Well, sometimes.
So yeah, it's like a puzzle piece. Like that's how I see it, as these puzzles, as you know, people's problems as being puzzles. And many times, just like a lot of these authors, the solution isn't just physical. There is an emotional and spiritual aspect to pain. And for me, if I were to disregard that, I wouldn't be doing my job. So I welcome that tremendously as part of the solution to treating people's pain. And that's one of the topics I introduced in the book.
So I know you said you were inspired by a particular physical therapist to write this book, and I know you work closely with lots of physical therapists. Will it make sense for someone? I'm thinking of my mom. She had rotator cuff surgery. She doesn't quite have full mobility. She's always like almost there. Will it help for a patient to read this, or is this more of like an inside baseball? This is really a medical manual, and share a copy with your favorite chiropractor or physical therapist?
So this is really much more technical. But like if your mom's in the DC area, I know people in the DC area that could probably help her. You know, like that's the whole thing about it. It's not all about me.
This is what and this book is amazing because it gets your methods out to more and more people who can get them out in the world. So powerful. This is what I want to say to you right now. Listeners, I haven't reminded you for a little while, but with each of these books, you are going to share them with one person. So I want you to share this book with a physical therapist you love, maybe a chiropractor. Who else do you think would love this book, Jennifer?
Well, I work with a lot of naturopathic physicians because they do such a good job of getting people's diet and taken care of. I think, food is medicine, movement is medicine, and your spiritual way of thinking about things. That's a type of medicine too, all that's really important to healing. In the osteopathic world, we know that injury or pain can be stored in the body. So I think a couple of other people have alluded to this, I think you did in a previous interview, is sometimes if we address the things that are holding us back in our lives, then it's really important to getting through that chronic pain.
It's so, body, mind, spirit, it's all connected, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So last question for you today before I let you go. Why don't we talk a little bit about your experience as a busy doctor, a busy mom, homeschooling a kid. You got a lot going on. What has working with the author incubator been like for you over the last, it's almost a year and a half we worked together.
So, the amazing thing about working with the author incubator is that I realized that the only limitations are in my brain. So I can do anything that I set myself out to do. And I realized that with the first book, the best thing about it was my practice. I just moved out to the Pacific Northwest. And so I had plenty of time because I wasn't that busy. But with the second one, I had to do exactly what you said. I had to carve out a portion of my daily week, and I had to do the book in that period of time. There was no question about it. But I already knew the process, and I knew how to think through it. And I knew that Bethany was supporting me, who is my editor, and through the whole process. And so there was a total trust in the system. And again, like one of the other authors has said, I knew it was going to get done. I think what I struggled with was, what was I going to write with initially? And then as I got to know the physical therapist in my area, it became obvious that that was the solution that I wanted to solve.
Love it. I love it. I love it. I love being a part of your journey. I think you're such a special person. This book, so important. Dr. Jennifer Stebbing, Rehabbing the Last 10%, Solutions for Patients Who Have Plateaued During Physical Therapy. Congratulations again, Dr. Jen.
Thank you.
Our next author is here with an important message about how to take risks and make big life decisions. And if there is anyone who has not been taking risks and making big life decisions in the last 6 months, please send me your phone number. I would like to chat, because the rest of us have been over here making big decisions. So Karina Farrar, she's the author of To Change or Not to Change, 8 Steps to Get Comfortable with Taking Risks and Making Big Life Decisions. Tell us about the book, Karina. Couldn't be a better time.
I wrote this book because obviously in this pandemic era, a lot of us are reevaluating our lives, what we've done with it thus far, and really not wanting to go back to, what we valued before, the things we valued before, maybe wanting to make a bigger difference from our life. I think a lot of us are realizing that life has been just passing us by. What have we done with it? And I always like to say, life is just happening to you. And
well, it's like when somebody has a cancer diagnosis or a heart attack or something, and they're like, I'm going to change everything in my life. I realize whatever, except for it's the whole world at once that just had the heart attack.
That's right. And, to be honest, I've had lots of near-death experiences. I've had a lot of crazy things happen in my life. And I've said that to myself, I'm going to change. It lasts for a little while, and you kind of fall back into your comfort zone. And, this is about not letting life happen to us, but start happening to life. Reevaluating your relationship with risk and what it should mean to you. It's not such a scary thing if we start looking at it in a different way. I think about every good thing that has happened in my life always came with me having to have taken some form of risk for that great, amazing thing to happen.
Let's talk about this book, because I think this book is a great, amazing thing. What were some of the risks you had to take with this book, and how did you get comfortable with them?
Well, with writing the book, writing the book in of itself was a risk for me. It was a new risk for me. I've gotten comfortable with taking risk and the fear of it over the years because I've had a lot of missed opportunities pass me by. And I just wanted to help other people live in their greatness in order to change something in their personal life, and more importantly in the world. Writing this book, it was a great risk for me because I had to put myself out there a little bit and relate to what everyone else is going through and speak about my personal experiences. So that was a little scary, but again, this is a great and amazing thing that's happening to my...
What helped? What were the things that worked, either with the author incubator or things you did on your own? What helped you the most to get this book done?
the structure, not wanting to disappoint not only myself, but to the whole team. You know, I've worked with lots of other people before, and I was just, you know, I didn't really care what they thought. And I've watched lots of your videos, and I was like, okay, she cusses a little bit. She's real. You know, I felt like I wasn't trying to be, you weren't trying to sell me on something. And, you know, they always say, when you're truly ready, the teacher appears. And I think you were that for me. And I was finally ready. And
do you think this book would have gotten done without the author incubator? And if so, how would it have been different? Either the journey or the final product?
I don't think this book would have gotten done. I've been talking about doing a book for years, and I knew I was supposed to do what I'm doing now. I just never did, you know, for one reason or another. Excuses would pop up, procrastination, all kinds of obstacles. And as I started writing this book, a lot of things came out that I did not expect. I didn't expect to write this book about risk, but I realized, you know, I do it a lot. I should help. This is something I should help other people with in order to progress in their life.
I love it. It's so perfect. You have the world's best smile. So I know now that this book is out, you're going to be smiling a lot on a lot of interviews. If you know someone who has a podcast and is looking for an amazing podcast guest or a YouTube show, Karina Farrar, an amazing podcast guest, a great topic to talk about in any interview, to change or not to change. 8 steps to get comfortable with taking risks and making big life decisions. Karina, best of luck with this book and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You know, one of the things that Karina shared with you all so accurately, I think, is that our team simply, positively does not hold space for failure. I believe it's the thing I'm most proud of as we built this business, but there are lots of companies out there. There are lots of book coaches. There are lots of editors. I am happy to give you a list of people who you could buy services from that are similar to ours, but there is no other company on the market that focuses on their most important goal being completion rate. We are not about teaching you things, although we do. We're not about having calls with you or making videos with you, though we do. We are about your book getting done. And as our company has grown, I mean, when I started this company, I was worried about everyone's book 24 hours a day, maybe a little bit unhealthy. And I really did need the equine therapy, I'm telling you. And then as the years have gone on, we've brought Bethany to take on the worry. Obviously, we have a whole team of editors, but Bethany does that editing worrying I used to do. And the worrying and the space holding that I did that was in some ways the hardest and the least mechanical was just feeling where everyone was at. Energetically, where is everyone? Are they thinking of quitting? Do they want to give up on themselves? Would they like to now blame me for their book not being done? And it was like in this one area of my life, I had these psychic spidey senses where I just always felt like I knew what everyone was doing. I used to say, you could wake me up at 2 o'clock in the morning and say an author's name and I could tell you where they were. I don't know how I did it. That is a very hard thing as a business owner to pass on, that like worrying at 2 a.m. It's hard to pay people for that. It doesn't cost, there's no number on the paycheck. And it's been such an amazing 2-year journey, 2 years and I think 2 weeks. Almost exactly 2 years and 3 weeks since Ramses came into the author incubator. Actually, I think he's been in my life a little longer than that, probably 2.5 years, because he came in as an author. But I can say he worries about y'all finishing as much as I do. It's so great. I still worry, but at least I know I'm not alone in my worrying. So when Karina was saying, like, I knew this company would have my back, I knew it's because it's about more than just giving you the tools. I have friends who are coaches who are like, hey, I give them the tools, they use it, great. They don't, great. But both Ramses and I have taken programs where we've gotten information. This is about transformation. And so I'm going to bring Ramses back. We've got a few more authors that I would love for Ramses to help share their journeys with you. He knows these guys a little better than I do because these are the ones he's been staying up worrying about. So why don't you take the microphone from me, Ramses, and tell us a little bit more about a couple more of our authors.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right about the loss of sleep. I also lost my hair in the process because
I did notice that you came to me with hair.
I had hair when I started. But yeah, we are all about getting these books done. These messages are super personal and amazing to the authors, and the work they want to do is incredible. And this is no different than the author I'm about to introduce to you, the author of The Art of Getting Unstuck, the African American man's journey from surviving to thriving. Welcome, Araina Thomas. Araina, welcome. How are you? And tell us about your book.
First, let's talk about you being stuck up all night about me.
It's all good, dear. It's written.
Yes, okay. Yes, we are.
Yeah. So the art of getting unstuck. Tell me how this is the African American man's journey from surviving to thriving. What a powerful and insightful title. Tell me about it.
Well, I'm a therapist and I work with a lot of African American men who happen to come in with their families. Very seldom do I get any that come in by themselves. I usually build a relationship with them after they come in with their families. But in my book, I use a model of several different men that I probably worked with when I use Sean in my book. And Sean is a 40-year-old African-American man who has decided that he is stuck in his life, in his career, in his relationship. So he reaches out and looks for an African-American female therapist who can help him and help him get unstuck. Mm-hmm. Just so happened the person that he goes to is a trauma specialist.
Oh,
and
you
come to find out that him being stuck has a lot to do with his trauma. The book goes into.
And before we get into that, and I love that you're saying this because we've heard this, by the way, Araina, you're not the first one on these interviews who've talked about trauma a little bit. But before we get into trauma, what is stuck looking like for him? You said his name is Sean. Yeah. What is stuck looking like? Is it relationship? Is he not, intimate with his partner? Is it showing up at work? How is this tangibly showing up for him? What does unstuck look like for him?
In his relationship, his personal relationships and friendships, family relationships, how stuck looks for him is that he can't move past, he can't get intimate. He can't connect because a lot of things that people don't know when you have trauma, to help you to get through the trauma, you build a wall. And in building the wall, you can decide who can come through the wall and who can't.
Right. So, when you say can't get intimate, do you mean like ED intimate, or is it like
emotionally intimate? Emotionally intimate.
Emotionally, okay.
That's why it codes across all his relationships, because he can't connect emotionally because he's protecting his emotions from the trauma.
Yeah. And how does it show up for him at work?
At work, that he has trust issues.
Oh, what kind of problems did that cause?
He has trust issues that nobody has his back. You have to have a certain relationship at work that if you forget to cross the T, that somebody's going to tell you instead of.
Right.
So he has those trust issues because he just don't connect. It's very hard. He'll begin to connect and he has the desire to connect, but he has no idea what's keeping him from connecting. So
go ahead. Continue.
So he always feels like the shoe is on the other foot. feel like it's something. Yeah.
Like the shoe's gonna drop, the other shoe's gonna drop, or
Yeah.
It's interesting that you use the word unstuck in your title, and I want to dive into that. Now, is this guy, this gentleman, the African American man's journey from surviving to thriving, is he using the word unstuck because it feels safer to say that than to really be honest? Like, how does he know this book is for him?
He really thinks, he really doesn't. He just kind of looks at this book and sees the words, and he know he's stuck. He looks at the book, and the book cover talks about people being stuck. So he do know he's stuck.
Okay, good.
Yeah, good. You know he's stuck.
Well, let's talk about getting unstuck in a different way. You just wrote a book. You just got all this message out.
Yeah.
So if stuckness showed up for you in writing this book, or if it didn't, in what way did the process help you communicate this message to this African-American man who's feeling stuck?
Well, stuck did show up for me in this book. I actually was going to start in the program in November, but I said, okay, I can wait. And so I was going to say, I'll do it in summer. It'd be more fun. Well, actually, but then my son passed in May. Yeah. So I lost my son in May, and that kind of almost threw that out the window. But because it was this book about African-American men, I decided that maybe this would give me a chance to get some healing and just go through the process of this. And it kind of helped me because I was
help facilitate that at all? Did the team or the process help at all, the author incubator?
Oh, definitely, because I'm very spiritual. The book was always very spiritual to me. And when I looked online to see that this was based around that spiritual, the mission statement, just everything jumped out at me. And I said, okay, I think that I can go in and be my authentic self and talk about my dreams and talk about all these things without somebody looking at me and say, what's that got to do with the book?
Right. That's beautiful. I love this message, and I really love that you're speaking to this man. You guys hear it. You're hearing it here first. Araina Thomas, the author of The Art of Getting Unstuck, the African-American man's journey from surviving to thriving. Thank you so much, and congratulations, Araina.
And thank you so much for being there for me and just everybody on the team. I appreciate it. I know I couldn't have did it.
Amazing work. You guys have it, Araina Thomas.
Thank you.
Next, I want to introduce to you the author of, and this title is powerful, just like the person who wrote it, The Accidental Alpha Woman, The Guide to Thriving When Life Feels Overwhelming. This is by author Karen Wright. Karen, welcome.
Hi, Ramses.
How are you? I just want to, first of all, the word alpha jumps out at me. And I know there has to be a story here. The Accidental Alpha Woman. Tell us about this book.
Well, this book, I mean, like so many of the stories that you've heard today, it has its origins in my own story. And really it's about the idea of a disconnect. For me, there was this life situation that emerged that was absolutely not what I planned for, thought I signed up for. And it required me to take on more responsibility, more roles. And I was angry a lot. I was really, really frustrated. This isn't how it's supposed to be. And that frustration just built in me for a long time. And at some point along the way, as I was describing my situation to someone, I coined this phrase, accidental alpha. And in that moment and in so many other moments since, every time I've spoken to a woman about this idea of an accidental alpha, they just seem to get it.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to get it. I mean, I don't have, I don't identify as a woman. I have my moments, honey, but I know, right? But the accidental alpha woman, I think I get it too. So I'm imagining, Karen, a wife who has kids and all of a sudden gets a divorce and now she has all the kids. And then she's now the accidental alpha woman. She has to take care of the kids, take them to school, work, manage a home. Is this kind of, a person who is going to consider themselves an accidental alpha woman?
Well, that's one way it can happen. In many cases these days, your partner might all of a sudden find themselves without a job or without income, and the breadwinner role falls on the woman's shoulders, in addition to so many of the caregiving and family organizing and that sort of thing. Sometimes it's the sudden death of a spouse, or a long-term debilitating illness of a spouse. In some cases, it's a realization that, there's one story in the book of a woman who realized one day she'd been planning, or actually not planning her life. She'd been living her life on the assumption that at some point she was going to have a partner. And she said she woke up one day and realized she was at an age where it might not happen. And she needed to come to grips with the fact that she might need to get more comfortable with being all of the things, instead of assuming that someone might take care of her, or at least share. So we're not talking about women who want to be secondary or subservient, but we are talking about this disconnect between the way I thought I was going to be living my life and the way I've ended up living it, and the overwhelm and the frustration that comes with that.
I love that. And to unpack something that kind of came up as you were saying this, do you believe that there's any maybe expectations or social pressures that come into play that it would become, that it's a thing that a woman accidentally becomes alpha? How does the surroundings or society play into this idea that I didn't know I was going to have to be alpha and all of a sudden I am? How does that kind of tie in?
Well, in my own case, there was a certain amount of shame around that I didn't want to admit to a whole lot of people outside of my most inner circle. I didn't want to admit that things were going sideways, that my life was a mess. And particularly when I'm an executive coach, I'm supposed to understand this stuff, right?
Right. Right. All the answers.
So, communication skills and life planning and goal setting and collaboration and cooperation, these are my professional wheelhouse. And so to be confronted with a situation that was just beyond my ability to cope was just not something I was willing to admit to very many people. And so there was a fair bit of pride around that. And then of course there's some, I think, for me anyways, I've got in my nurturing nature is, well, other people are probably equally overwhelmed. I don't want to bother anyone. It's probably too big a problem for me to ask someone for help. So really the whole premise of the book is around the fact that women, for the most part, are not that good at receiving. And my life would have been easier if I had figured out earlier how to receive help, ideas, suggestions, support, anything.
It's so incredible. And it's true, especially women who, I don't call them alphas, but I always have powerhouses around me. I surround myself by powerhouse women. And I have heard them say these things like, that it would feel a little, there's like an expectation once you're kind of successful or you're running the show, and to feel vulnerable or at least to express it felt like a step back to them. Maybe. Yeah.
Well, there is some of that goes on now too, right? Well, there's so much room for us to be accomplished and successful in some of the more kind of stereotypical conventional ways, that to be strong and soft, to be strong and vulnerable. So, one of the things I want to do with this book is to debunk the idea of the strong woman and just say, like, why don't you just be you, whatever that looks like in whatever its form? That's the happier place. That's the easier place to be by a long shot.
That's amazing. And I could see this book being so powerful for anyone who, like I said, I gave you a very simple example of mom who's now running the show at home, but a CEO who feels vulnerable and needs a little help because of the overwhelm, maybe an entrepreneur or I actually talked to a serial entrepreneur who had this very same issue, and she had multiple businesses, and she was like, oh my God, I don't even know how to ask for help at this point.
So. Right, we get out of the habit of asking for help if we ever knew how in the first place. And you're absolutely right about the CEO or the senior level business leader or the business owner. In fact, one of the stories in the book is about a woman who is a business owner, and she just said, like, being the single point of failure in both the work system and the home system is exhausting. And yet, and part of what happens is you just get so focused on, I've just got to get all these things done and handle all this stuff and make sure all of these people are taken care of, that you don't actually even think to sort of step back and say, wait a minute, could I delegate? You know, could I maybe outsource some of this? What if I just admitted that maybe I couldn't do it all? Okay, crazy idea, right?
No, right. It's great. But it's so funny because I feel that you, and this is a perfect segue, Karen, talking about your work here with us and writing this book, right? You outsourced some help too. Tell us about your experience in, you know, using the Author Incubator team to getting this book written for the Alpha Woman.
Well, I think it's important to understand that I had this idea 15 years ago.
Oh,
right. So clearly, I mean, it started to form 15 years ago. And obviously it's evolved as my life experience has progressed, but absolute truth, this book would not be out in the world today if not for the Author Incubator. So I am just so grateful for that. It's just an absolute fact. And you know, I approached you when I was thinking of signing up for the program. It's like, Ramses, should I do this? And you're like, girl, yes.
Yeah, I've seen you in action. I was like, yes, girl.
Yes, totally.
So, I'm so glad you did. And it's such an amazing product. It's an amazing book, an amazing journey. And listen, folks, if you find yourself, just like Karen said, and the women in her book and the women she's speaking to, you find yourself, you're overwhelmed, you're an accidental powerhouse or alpha woman, pick up this book, download it. It is available to you. If you know someone who else needs it too, go ahead and give it to them. It's The Accidental Alpha Woman, The Guide to Thriving When Life Feels Overwhelming. Karen Wright, congratulations.
Thank you, Ramses.
Amazing. Now I'm going to hand the baton over one more time to Dr. Angela Lauria, who is going to introduce to you another few authors who have amazing journeys and messages for those who they are meant to serve. Dr. Angela.
I'm back. I'm back for the last time. I am just so falling in love with all of these authors again. We get to work with the coolest people.
I know.
It's so good. Every once in a while, I'm like, I should go back to doing software books. And then I think of how boring these interviews would be if I had to talk about software all the time. Nothing wrong with software, my software friends. I love you and your software. But wow, there's just such important work being done here. And the depth of this work and the importance of this work is not to be underestimated. I think there's so much wrong in the world right now, and so many of us want to fix all of it. But I think what's even more important is finding your area of responsibility. My client Rachel Talton calls it your God job, the mission that has been granted forth to you for whatever reason. And I know the tulips don't all get together and say, God, it would be so great if we were zucchini flowers. Like then we could have zucchini, like they're just happy to be tulips. And you, my little tulips, you are doing such important work just the way you are, with the missions you've been given, the stories that you have in your hearts, the experiences, the heartbreaks, the joys, all of it is yours for a reason. I never want you to doubt that. And I have some of those questions myself, right? Like I'm like, oh, should we go back to software books? What should we do? And when I have questions like that, God usually dumps in my lap a sister. She shows up looking like a client, but I know she is a goddess that I have spent many, many lifetimes with. I'm so thrilled to get to be reunited in this lifetime with Sequoia Stafford. I know I'm supposed to call you some other things, but you're Sequoia to me, mama. Sequoia's new book, I'm Not Jealous, The Ethical Non-Monogamous Guide to Free Love Relationships Without Suffering. Of course, the way I read this title, Sequoia, is I'm not jealous. It's got a little edge in my voice.
As you know, all of my books do.
Yes, you're right. You're a master of a title. I love you.
I love you too.
I'm so proud of this book. I want to tell you why I'm proud of it.
Please.
This is hard stuff to talk about. I know both of your books have been hard things to talk about. And it's like when they were giving out assignments, some people got like landscaping, some people got car mechanic, and they got to you and they're like, let's give her the hard stuff. She's done it so many times. Let's have her talk about erectile dysfunction, non-monogamy, jealousy, like bring it.
Totally.
Oh my God. Why do you always talk about the hard stuff, Sequoia?
The source and creator as she is, she kind of gave me that as a contract option. And I said, if that's what I'm here for, please use me as best as you can, because I'm here to make a difference. And it's not easy for me to talk about the hard stuff, but that's exactly why I do it. And I write in this book, and also my first book, you find the gold in the discomfort. And the reason I write what I write or do the work that I do is because I can. And I don't know a lot of people who can, and I am not willing to leave my life purpose on the table without accomplishing it. And so I do talk about the hard things, but it also calls me to be that person who is going to not give up. I know a lot of people have heard the story about Thomas Edison, but he used to disclose that he was going to announce one of his innovations to the media before he had it figured out, because his reputation was on the line, and he wasn't going to let himself off the hook if he announced it to others. Writing about the topics that I write calls me to be the best person I can possibly be in all of my relationships, not just my love romantic relationships, but also my family relationships. And as you know, I'm a huge family person, and this book, while it talks about ethical non-monogamy, people might think that that's all about having sex with as many people as you want. Not true. It's not about sex. It's about how you can share love freely and create family with whomever you choose to create family with. And you get to choose how love is expressed with that person, because as an autonomous being, you have that right. It is all of our birthright. And I love that I finally got to write this book, because it's really at the heart of who I am. And this is also my love letter to women, to say, don't settle. You don't have to be settled. You are the queen of your domain. Own it, girl, and be in love with whomever you want to be, because it's your right.
So I think that sounds so good for you, because you're like all beautiful, you've got it all together, you got to figure it out. But I think there are people listening who the idea of trying non-monogamy, or maybe they've even had some relationship, feels like there's a circle of shame around it. Like, but what if my teenage daughter found out? Or what if my mom found out? Like, I have to lead this double life. Like, my husband and I do this, but only when we're in a hotel or whatever. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Right.
You're very normal. Like, you're like a normal mom, and you've got a relationship with your ex-husband. I'm like, how would I navigate that with my ex-husband, who I share custody with? You've got all the things. You got a business, you have friends, you have parents. We've talked about them. They now know that you know a whole lot about ethical non-monogamy. How do you do that? How do you embody that? Where does the shame go? How do you manage it?
So that's such a badass question, because I'm also the previous owner of a toy store. Like I was a toy store owner. So wouldn't I be ashamed to talk about this? And I was just talking about this to my partner, John, last night, actually. If we treat someone's shame of how they see our life choices with more shame, it just perpetuates shame, right? So I really believe that one of the chapters in my book is love leadership. And I love that so many of your authors are talking about leadership right now. And as you and I have talked about a lot, female leadership is really important right now, not leadership forcefully, but from the divine feminine perspective, right? And this is my way of saying there's no shame in loving as many people as I want, the way I want. That is something that I'm out to really just say, look, normal people are doing this. It's time for this closet to be opened. And yeah, I might take some hits. I know I'm fortified for it. It doesn't feel good if I do. But the reality is we're talking about love, which in my opinion is what the universe is really made of. And so if I'm going to not be ashamed of how I love people, then I have to be a template for that in the universe, for the universe to get supported. And oftentimes the first person to say it is not the leader who makes the difference. It's the people who support that leader. And for me, I am asking people to try on the idea of loving freely is a right. Monogamy is a construct that we've come out of. And most people, just like in the movement of the gay queer movement, of the 70s, it was seen as shameful. But the reality is we now have it as like people have the right to marry who they want to marry. And it was in the shadows in the past. Now it's no longer in the shadows. It's time for us to all admit that we've all had multiple relationships. You've had multiple marriages. I've had multiple marriages. I can't be monogamous if I try because I've had multiple marriages already. So why wouldn't I choose? Right?
We will not be mating for life. I am so excited about I'm Not Jealous, the ethical non-monogamous guide to free love relationships without suffering. What I'm most excited about is the conversations this could lead to in your life. You're home, you have wine. This is the time. Break the book out, have a little book club with your partner and see what interesting conversations come to the table. I think there's just so much here about fully embracing your wants and being honest. I know the work that you did with your first book, It's Hard, is really about having honest conversations. It looks like it's about one thing, but at the heart of your work is true heart to heart, soul to soul connection and communication. And you model that so beautifully. I know that's why your clients love working with you. So.
Thank you. And thank you for your entire team's work, everyone from Erica to Corey to you and Ramses and Steve and just the whole team. I could not have done 2 books in 1 year without everyone standing behind me and saying, I can do this. So thank you very much.
2 books, 1 year, several moves, couple relationships, a little bit of drama, COVID, elections. Oh my God, what a year, girl.
Yeah.
Sequoia Stafford. She is the author of I'm Not Jealous, the ethical non-monogamous guide to free love relationships without suffering. You can get it right now. Congratulations, Sequoia.
Thank you.
Our next author is a first-time author, and her book is Rest, Listen, Love, Learn to Live Joyfully with Chronic Pain. Kendra Sandoval, I'm so excited to have you here. Hello.
Hi.
Well, Rest, Listen, Love, very interesting collection of advice. Why is that your message to people with chronic pain?
Because you need to slow down to figure out what's hurting. You know that your body is aching, and what else is hurting? What can you change? What can you own? What are the choices that can be yours?
Who did you write this book for? What's the book about, and who did you want to reach with it?
Well, I'll tell you what, this book is really it's an offering. It's an offering that I give back to all of the people who have taught me these lessons, these practices, and to all of the people that we know are in pain, that need to be able to learn to breathe, need to learn to be able to taste what they're eating, slow down and really see the sky. All of these amazing authors on here are saying so many of the same things that I'm saying. And that is what is really intriguing about this particular program, is that it really found me, like it sounds like it found many people here. And it was like this gift that I prayed on a hike one day in June and said, you know, you've brought me here to live with the love of my life. And I left Santa Barbara after not being able to run for mayor in Denver. And I'm not sure what to do. And so I need to know. And you appeared in my world and you were like, if you want to write a book that makes a difference, and I was like, I do. And I just want to share what happened to me. It's like, I lived a really awesome life. It was super fun and it hurt all the time. And the truth is you're not alone. People are not alone when it hurts like this. And you can feel so much better. You can actually just live a total joyful life. You're not going to even feel pain every day. That's really the truth of all of this work.
Do you feel like there was a day for you when the switch flipped? Was there like, I get it now, or was it a gradual journey or a process?
You know, the first day I learned to meditate was about 17 years ago. And I went to Naropa University because I saw this rising sun in the morning and I knew that I needed to go and learn to be more gentle. And I had grown up in politics and I knew that I needed to come to that work with honesty and vulnerability and say what was true. And it was like hard work. And after a while, I realized I needed to slow down and I needed to just take it easy because I was hurting so bad that I needed to spend the time healing. And then I got a hip replacement, and that was 2 years ago. And since then, I moved to California for a year and I walked the beaches. And then I met the love of my life at our 30-year high school reunion. And he said to me, you know, you're the one that got away. And I was like, what? And it was, now we're married and living here and back in Colorado where my family is. So
I love that so much. So you obviously had a powerful personal story of transformation. And I think a lot of times when people come to the author incubator, they think, well, I'll just start, you know, I was born by the river. Like, I'm going to tell my life story in chronological order, and then people will magically find the book and they'll be so moved by my personal story, I'll be able to change the world. And we sort of dash people's hopes early in exactly how that'll work. What was the biggest challenge you had with the Author Incubator program? And then what for you was the biggest win?
You know, I think the biggest challenge was probably the biggest challenge for everybody right now was COVID. It was like we didn't get together. And so we had to really establish a different kind of community that was online. And I think that the leadership there really was representative of the way we need to build that together in the future. I think that it was also the, some days there was just steps that were really, they were painful. They took a week to figure out. And I really needed to sit with it. And I was lucky to be able to have the time, but I appreciated the time you built into the program. And because you move fast, this is a very fast program. And yet at the same time, you get the space to really develop what it is that, you know, you want to share from this deep heart that's really given a lot of love. And so that was a really, really wonderful process for me.
I love it. Well, we are so proud of you, so proud of this book, Rest, Listen, Love, Learn to Live Joyfully with Chronic Pain by Kendra Sandoval. Such a powerful personal story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. Last but not least is a two-time author who has a thriving medical practice and an important message that goes really beyond the body to that body, mind, spirit connection we talk about so often at the Author Incubator. Well, Dr. Carolyn DeLucia is the author of The Ultimate Connection, The Blueprint to Everlasting Love Inside Yourself. And as I mentioned, Dr. DeLucia has written a second book with us, a little bit of a departure from your first book. Tell us about Ultimate Connection and why you wrote this book and what's it about.
I wrote this book because it was a story that was inside me. It was more about my own personal journey in life and what had happened to me through the years of becoming who I am. And it was very, very painful to go through what I did. I went through a divorce after 23 years, after raising two amazing daughters. I don't regret any of those years, but the relationship was broken from the very beginning. And the saddest thing is that I didn't understand why. And we went through 2 years of marriage counseling, missed the point. The counselor never told us or shared with us what was really going on in our marriage. And the end result was that it didn't last. And in this book, I try to help other people not have to take so long to figure it all out. And so it was more of a book from my heart rather than a medical point of view.
I wonder, in your job, do you get to share this I love my doctor. I've been with her since 1994, but I don't even know if she's married. I guess she's married. I know nothing about my doctor's personal life. It seems, I don't know. Do you get to talk about stuff like this with your patients normally?
Not super in depth because I share a little bit about dating with them. And some of them want to know if I'm involved, if I'm not involved, if I'm still with this one, still with that one. And it's been quite the journey, but most of the time, no. It's only a few patients. I will talk to young ladies if they're dating. I want to know if they're in a relationship or having multiple partners, because that's relevant to their gynecological health. But it does get into, oh my gosh, you do online dating? No, did you ever have this occur and that? So we do go into fun stories every once in a while.
I love it. I know you have a super busy business. I'm going to ask for a quick shout out for the Author Incubator team. What's it been like writing 2 books while running a busy medical practice? How'd you get it done? How did we help?
The most amazing thing about the Author Incubator is that they gently nudge and keep you on track. And I was just thinking about this earlier today. I did a procedure and the patient was very anxious and she was saying, ow, ow, ow. And I knew I wasn't really hurting her. At the end of the procedure, I said to her, on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the worst pain, 0 being none, what would you say was your actual pain level? And she goes, 2. And I said, next year, it's going to be a 1 because the anxiety will be gone. And that's the way I look at having the second book. The first book was the ow, ow, ow. I didn't know what was going on. I was anxious the whole time. I didn't know what was coming next. I didn't know why I was doing what I was doing. And then all of a sudden it came together. And when I looked back, it was a 2. This one was a 0. I vomited it out on the pages. It was simple. And now it's a series. I'm going to do number 3. It's the ultimate series.
I love it. Well, you are the ultimate client. So Dr. Carolyn DeLucia, The Ultimate Connection. What was the name of your first book?
Ultimate Intimacy.
Ultimate Intimacy. And do we know the third one? Do we know what we're writing?
Ultimate First. It's going to be for younger kids getting into sex.
I love it. We can talk about sex around here. This one is Ultimate Connection, the blueprint to everlasting love inside yourself. Congratulations on this
Thank
book.
you. And it's dedicated to you. Amen.
Oh, is it? I haven't seen
Yes.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, I'm very excited about that. Way to make my day. Thank you guys so much for joining us today as we celebrate these authors and release their messages into the world. I hope you've learned something. I hope you have been inspired. I hope you've gotten some free books, shared some books with some people, and maybe your book idea is bubbling up to the surface. If that is you, please head over to theauthorincubator.com/apply. That's 3 words, THE, the author, AUTHOR, and incubator, INCUBATOR.com/apply. Click on that link, get started, do exactly what each of these authors did to start their journey with us. Make sure you get all these books, share them with someone you love. Look up my books and Ramses's books too while you're over there on Amazon. But that is it for today, everyone. So what I would love to do is just share with you these authors one more time to share their covers, these books, the hard work that they have done to bring more hope and healing and joy and positivity and freedom from pain into the world. They could have laid on their couch and watched Netflix. That's what I did for the last 3 months. I've caught up on all of Lost. I recognize I'm 15 years behind. These guys, though, they were writing a book, and it's so powerful and such a testament to what we look for in all of our authors, which is a servant's heart, a commitment to making a difference no matter what. So Ramses, I hope you will join me as I remind everyone that our mission at the Author Incubator is to change the world. Show them your covers. Changing the world, one book
at a
time. Congratulations, everyone. Here's to your books.